I'm Jali Morel and welcome to my channel. Do you wonder if NHS versus private would be better? Me too. That's why I have embarked, and I'd like to give you a couple of pros and cons about NHS versus private. However, this wasn't me going fully private. I did have Bupa insurance, so I can give you a bit of information about how Bupa work. Let's have a look at what I thought. Roll the tape.
So for those of you who are in a quick rush, I'm just going to give you a very quick breakdown and summary of pros and cons. So first of all, NHS, as we know, is prepaid for our taxes and is free. So this is definitely a pro for the NHS. Private, even though I was with Bupa, I did have an allowance of $1,500 for the year for outpatient expenses, i.e., scans, blood tests, things like this. And I did have a humongous bill. Oh my god, it was such a shocker. And I'll get onto that later in the video, so stay tuned for that. However, no crossovers. So although private do say that for things like blood tests, mine ended up costing £1,800. They suggest that you go to the NHS for some blood tests. The truth is ridiculous, horrendous shock. They don't look at each other's records regarding my they're never going to be able to refer you to the NHS, and the NHS aren't going to refer you to private. They may say it in words and suggest it, but they don't. There's no crossovers. So this is a con for both parties. Another pro for the NHS is point of contact and confusion. With the NHS, you go to your GP, they refer you, you get a letter, it explains what to do, and you go. With private, unfortunately, my first point of contact was an app called Babylon. Then I spoke to a GP. Then they gave me a referral letter. Then I had to speak to the consultant's, say it was gastro, whatever, the consultant's assistant. Then you speak to the assistant. Then you go and see the consultant. Then you also have to book with the actual hospital, which was BMI in this case. And there's just lots of steps, which makes things very complicated, as I'd explain later. The other thing is waiting list. This is a con against the NHS and very much a pro for the private. With the NHS, you've got long waiting lists, months and months, could be years for some people. And then for the private, it is super quick. I literally I could call today and I could get blood tests for today or tomorrow, anytime I like, which is amazing. So seeing consultants, having blood tests, having ultrasounds, having any sorts of scans, MRIs, they are super quick. However, if you probably wanted a kidney transplant, it may be a long waiting list, but not as long as the NHS from what I can see. Okay, this could be a pro or a con in either direction. The doctors that work for NHS also work for private. So you are getting the same doctor. So you're thinking you're paying more money, but it's the same doctor. However, this leads me on to you get to select a specialist with private. So the con is that you're thinking you're seeing the same person. However, they have a long list. They provide you with a list and you can select whoever you want, which is amazing. So with the NHS, you get dictated to who you see. You don't get to see a specialist that you want. With private, you get a list sent to you and you can pick whoever you want, which is amazing. The other con for the NHS is if you were going to be an inpatient and you were going to have surgery, you're not going to get a private room. You're not going to get like fancy food. It's not going to be as clean and as beautiful as the as private, sorry. So that is a pro for going private, but that's only for like surgeries. Outpatient stuff, to be honest, is the same as in cleanliness and beauty, depending on where you go. The BMI hospital wasn't anything special, but I have been to like the Royal Brompton, which is a lot more fancy. So that's the difference there. The other pro for NHS is long-term health. The NHS will treat you regardless of what's going on and what you have. However, with private and Bupa, they can be a bit more selective and fussy. So they they will diagnose you and they'll give you initial treatments, but they're not interested in long-term illnesses or problems or long-term chronic sicknesses, or they are a bit fussy about pre-existing diagnostics that you've had. So if I've been diagnosed with something, they kind of say they won't deal with it. However, I have seen both my NHS GP and private with the same thing, and they've been fine about it. So there's some sort of loophole there. But also private will not deal with anything that's like emergency A&E accidents or pregnancy. So this is a cross against a private.
So that was my quick summary. I say quick, but it's actually long, of pros and cons with the NHS. Now, if you would like to watch my actual experiences, how it actually was going for blood tests, private, my experience in the Royal Oak near Chase Farm, Enfield, then please keep watching. Thank you. Bye.
Day 1, my first appointment. So
just come back from my appointment in private, BMI. It is the King's Oak Hospital. How it compares to the NHS I thought was interesting. It's right next to the NHS, right next to an NHS hospital. Excuse the mess, it's been a long day. And we're still in COVID, so wearing masks and stuff, not so good. But yeah, anyway, so with the NHS, you basically get, I went there and I had like bloating, diarrhea, I fall asleep after eating, I feel dizzy, I've got bad memory, I find it really hard to concentrate, stuff like this. And they gave me a ultrasound, and they did blood tests. Everything came back fine. So we'll see, it'll be interesting to see what the private does. So I've gone for the private. You go in and basically he has given me 2 stool samples. He wants me to test my poo. 4 different kinds of blood tests that have like 5 things ticked on each blood test. 2 breath tests. So they get you, I believe, to drink something and then you exhale onto something and then it shows up how your body reacts, or enzymes I guess, or bacteria or something react to that. So I thought that was good. What else? Oh, and an ultrasound as well of my stomach, my bowels and my pelvic region. So, you know, it's all interlinked and could be hormonal based. So I thought that was interesting. So already I would say yes, you're getting more. The thing I didn't like, and I don't know if this is a COVID thing, but with the private, I mean, I know when you see a GP and the NHS, you get in and they've only got 10 minutes and you get out. But it's a calmer pace, it's maybe a slower pace, maybe in a negative way, maybe it's less effective. But with this, I sort of went in, I queued to see the receptionist. It's all very like, they're not very smiley, happy people. I would have thought private would have been like, hello, welcome, this is blah blah, please take a seat. But it was very like, yeah, next. Okay, what are you here for? What's the appointment? Okay, go over there, left, right, left, right. It's like, and they do it really quick. And I'm not being funny, but I just said I have memory and concentration and focus issues. So you going left, right, blah, 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 it's not going to help me. So I was like, all right, okay, I'll try and remember that. And then when I saw the actual consultant, again, he's very quick. He was like, tell me your symptoms. I went blah, 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 blah. He was like, okay, do you have this? No. Do you have this? And he's just writing down tick, 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 obviously to exclude or eliminate whatever he thinks or doesn't think. And then over on the side, he had a filing cabinet with loads of different different colours. And he just grabbed like, how many did I get? 4, 5, 6, just like, I don't know, 6, 7 of them. And he was like, right, you're going to go for this blood test, here's this, going for this, here's this, this is blood. You go to the nurses on the 2nd floor of the floor for the blood test. Then you're going to go upstairs round the corner, bend over your backside, and you'll be at the ultrasound. And this is just to book the appointment, this isn't to actually have it. Then you need to do this, this and this, then you have to fast for this but not for this, and no. And he just blurted it all out. And there's like, any questions? And I was like, yeah, can't remember anything you just said. Like, couldn't even have written it down. I was like, okay, we're done here, thank you. And then I went into the corridor and I was like, I'm not even sure how to get out. Like, he picked me up from reception and walked fast to wherever he was going, and I was coming out like, I have no idea where I'm going. And the woman next to me who's walking down the corridor was like, oh, I'm lost, where's the way out? And obviously I read the sign and pointed to her, but I was a bit like, I'm not sure how to get back to reception. I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to go to first, where I'm supposed to go. I just asked someone that looked like a nurse, and I went up to her and I was like, can I book these blood tests with you? And she was like, no, go to the reception. And I was like, okay, where is the reception? And then she was like, oh, let me have a look. Well, actually, you could book it. When do you want to come in for it? And I was like, whenever's next available. And she was like, okay, let me take you to reception. So I was a bit like, can you book it? Or are you booking it for me? Or are you helping me? Or are we going to reception? I wasn't sure. So yeah, and then it was like, then she was like, oh, you can have it 8 o'clock tomorrow, which is a bit quick. Which is good, actually. We're so used to the NHS being slow. So with the private, it's super quick, which is great. But it was a bit like, it's so quick, I can't get my mind around it. I've got all these appointments. I had to quickly write them down in my diary. Have to quickly check with work, like, it doesn't give you a chance to breathe. Normally you're waiting for a letter, and I'm not complaining. I know this is actually a positive of the private industry, but it was a bit of a whirlwind. So if you're, maybe a bit slower in life, or you're a bit tired, or you're a bit, if you're having any mental health problems, it's quite hard to quickly grasp what they're saying very quickly, or you'll be asking again, and no one wants to ask more than twice, really. So anyway, I'm blabbing. So we shall see how my tests go. I have got an 8 o'clock appointment tomorrow morning. I shall let you know how that goes. Okay, so just a quick one, something that I really need to share with you. So they gave me 2 test tubes to put a fecal sample in, and they were like this skinny and this big, and I'm like, not being funny, but how am I supposed to get a fecal sample in that? Maybe a rabbit could do it, but I thought, all right, I'll give it a go. My husband looked at it and he's like, oh, they gave you the wrong ones. And I'm like, no, this must be the right one, surely. Oh my God. I go in there and I'm like, how should I do this? You can't really drop it in the bowl because you're not going to get it out. I could try and put the test tube underneath my booty around the hole to let it go in. Maybe catch it with a tissue and then scoop it in. I wasn't sure, but I thought, let's try the non-invasive, or not non-invasive, but let's put the cup by the hole and hope that it goes in. So I tried this. This did not work at all. It basically was obviously wider than that and just sat like a lump of ice cream on top of a test tube. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with that? So with the lid is attached like a little spoon. So I was there like Mr. Wimpy trying to like squish it down into the tube. It's just messy. It went places it shouldn't go. It's just disgusting. And I washed my hands many times, thank you. And then I tried option number 2 for my number 2, and that was to hold my hand with tissue and poo onto the tissue and then plop it into the sample. This worked out better. There was less mess, but I don't know if the tissue could affect the reading of the sample. But I'm pretty sure they gave me the wrong thing. So either that's mistake number 1 for private, or I don't know, man. I just have a big butthole and big number 2s. I don't know, but I mean, like a normal size person's thing is like, around this size. So how is it supposed to fit into something this size? Makes no sense. Anyway, sorry about the detail, but that's my experience so far. Okay, so just had a complete shocker. What it's clear to me is that Bupa and the BMI hospital do not communicate. So I've got an allowance, and the problem is that they book you in. You can get an appointment so quick. So I can call today and I can get an ultrasound for tomorrow, see the gynecologist, whatever I want, okay? So I was like, great, I've got 1,500, let me speak to their GP. They referred me for a gyno and a gastroenterologist, whatever. And, you know, there was like 2 consultants and they said it ranges from like around £50 to £80 for a consultant. So I'm asking constantly, whatever they book me in for, like, how much does this cost? And they're like, oh, they will give you the price when you get there, blah, blah, blah. So Bupa are like, they'll give you the price, can range around this price. So I make a note, cool. And then basically I went to a gynecologist and he put me for a load of bloods. He filled out some forms, tick, 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 tick. Here, take these forms, go and have a blood test. Take this form, go and book an ultrasound. Take this form and book for breath tests, methane and hydrogen breath tests. So I was like, cool, this sounds exciting. It's stuff that I've never had on the NHS before. This is going to be great. So far, actually, and fecal. So far, all I've had done, I saw the gastro consultant guy. And I don't know how much his fee was, but I was expecting around 50 quid. And I had a load of blood tests and a fecal sample, poo sample, okay? So those 3 things I have done. I'm also waiting to see a gynecologist, have an ultrasound, and do some breath tests, okay? That should all be within £1,500, right? Wrong. So I've had those tests and I phoned up straight after I had the bloods and handed in the fecal, and I said how much do they cost. I went in the hospital, I said to the consultant, I said, how much does it cost? He said, speak to reception, they will tell you. I went and booked the blood test and said, how much does it cost? And they said, we can't tell you, you're with Bupa, because the Bupa have a private you know, their own price. They negotiate their own price. That's great, but they should know, the hospital should know what their price with Bupa is. But okay, you've told me to go Bupa. I go back to Bupa, I phone them, they're like, well, the hospital should tell you. I'm like, well, the hospital didn't tell me. They could only tell me if I was private, i.e. no insurance, walk through the door and want something, which is a rough guide maybe, but they couldn't even tell me what the bloods were anyway. I also emailed the consultant secretary who you booked the appointment with, and she emailed back saying, oh, well, I can only give you the price of the consultancy. Everything else has to be Bupa or the hospital. So hospital will refer me back to Bupa. I've gone back to Bupa. They're like, we don't know. So they don't know either. So I'm like, well, these are things I've had done. Kind of need to know how much it costs because I don't want to run out of money, and I've got all these appointments coming up and I have no idea. My naivety in this situation is I've been with the NHS. So I know they're going to cost money, but I have no idea how much. So she was like, okay, let me find out. 3 days later, Bupa get back to me. They can only give me a couple of prices on the bloods. They don't know about the fecal. They don't know about anything else. So I'm like, how long does it take to get a price? So now it's been, so she gave me that and she'll work on more. I phoned them today, which is like 2 days later, and I'm like, look, I've got an ultrasound booked tomorrow. I've got a gynecologist the day after that. I really need to know, because if I have gone over my allowance or it's like maxing out, I need to know whether it's still worth having these tests, how much I have to pay. Oh my God. They had a breakdown of all the bloods. And basically I had 11 test tubes of blood taken, let's say. And I was like, you know, you guys told me before it's like £45 to £200. I thought that was like the total bill of bloods. And they were like, no, no, no. And I was like, okay. So they were like, no, that's like, I was like, okay, that's per test tube then, right? And they're like, no, 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 that's per tick on the form. So I've got a form and I've got like 12 ticks on each form. I've got like 24 ticks. So my bloods for a load of different things that I have no idea about cost £1,800. £1,800 just for bloods. My allowance is £1,500. So obviously I am way over. And on top of that, I've got my fecals that I've had done and all these other things that are booked in to have done. And I also was having physio and that's already been deducted. So I'm like gonna owe them like £1,000. And they still can't tell me how much I owe them in total. They've only got the bloods. They're still waiting to get the fecal. And I'm like, mate, I'm already in debt. and you still can't even tell me how much I owe. And they're like, oh, well, the hospital should not, look, this isn't good enough. The systems between the two, no one knows. They should just get a database of Bupa and their communication and prices with BMI Hospital. Whoever I go to, Bupa or the actual hospital should be able to just type on a database and look at prices for the contract between the two companies. And I'm still waiting for a price. I still have no idea how much I owe. So I know it's going to be like over $1,000. So I've had to cancel all my appointments, and I'm still waiting for how much the fecal cost. God knows how much that cost. You know, I thought bloods wouldn't be this expensive. So God knows, you know, if that's like another $1,000, how are we supposed to just pull money? I am just a normal person with a low paid job. And there is no way on this planet that, you know, you might have a little bit of savings, but most people cannot just pull a couple of grand out of their backside. So this is definitely an X against private insurance. They kind of work in arrears, which isn't helpful for anyone that's got money, who can afford it, got a couple of grand spare in their bank. Yeah, sure, just log up some tests. But I'm begging for them to tell me how much I'm owing them for stuff I've had done, not even the stuff that I was planning to do, and they can't tell me. And they're like, oh, we have to wait for an invoice, and then, you know, then we'll send you a letter saying how much you owe. That is not proactive. That's no good to me. I'm sort of someone who likes to save up and prepare myself for these things. I'm already in arrears. I had to cancel all my appointments. They should let you know. You know, and the consultant wasn't £50. It was £150, which makes a huge difference to my budget. So in this case, I am very disappointed. This is something you'll have to look out for if you're someone like me who likes to work on a budget. And you know, I'd like to be proactive. I mean, this is all just ridiculous, really. So I am putting in a complaint, not against anyone, but just to say, mate, your systems should be easier. I am struggling to get a price. You guys should know the price of these things. NHS people may not know the price of their stuff, but it's all included and it just goes on. But private health should know the prices of stuff. Now, if I did ask them how much an ultrasound was, and they were like, it's £550, but they said that's to a private person. So you could say I could have asked for a price on everything, and then that would have been a rough guide. But then I don't know what Bupa have negotiated, but you know, the truth is they couldn't even tell me what the bloods were. They were like, well, what bloods did you have done? And it's like, well, I'm not going to be able to just go, oh yeah, off the top of my head, oh, C-active protein and and pylo and cyto, whatever. These are all words that I'm not a doctor, I'm not familiar with these words. I have to use Google. So if you don't know, I definitely don't know what I had tested for. And as a hospital, you should have it all on a record, on a database or something. So yeah, not to go on, but not impressed. On the positive side, however, going private, you get access to obviously a lot of bloods that I had taken. NHS never would have tested me for. I have been for tests with them, and they tested me for 5 things, and you know, Bupa tested me for 20 things, maybe because they want to make money, I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, you know, it's stuff that I am interested in being tested for, and so you have more access in that way. And if I said to him, I want to test for this, both the Babylon GP person, if you discuss it with them, they can refer you more for what you want. And also with the consultant, if I said I had concerns or I felt or wanted something, it's a little bit more flexible to get what you want. Also the consultant, Bupa will give you a list of 5 consultants to pick from, and if I want to look on the long wide web and find someone of my own who is under Bupa as well, I can. So you can pick who you actually go and see, and that was really useful because I looked at maybe say 4 gynecologists, and they were all talking about, 3 of them were talking about fertility as a specialist subject. Now, I wasn't going for fertility issues. If I was, I could have picked them, but one of them included polycystic ovaries and hormonal issues, so then that was a positive. I could key in, or you know, focus on what they specialize in and what I thought suited me. If you're someone like me who likes to research exactly what's what, then you know, that is really good for flexibility. And also they've put me in touch with, I'm looking into functional medicine, and Bupa Insurance do just about support some functional medicine practices. It's a very new thing in the UK, it's massive in America, and I believe it to be a really good combination between the overall picture of the body, natural health with medical health. You know, NHS is just purely medical. They want to just give you a load of tablets and operations for everything, where functional health will look more at the root cause. Like if we can cure the root of the problem with maybe diet, exercise or health, or something more natural and healthier for you than just filling you with drugs and, you know, opening you up for operations, then that's better. So the one good thing I can say, although it does cost a lot of money, and as we're aware I have no money in my budget anymore, there is I've got in touch with the Functional Gut Clinic, and they do things that I've never heard of before, which I'm not sure if you can get on the NHS, but I've certainly never heard of it before. And, you know, I have mentioned about intolerances and stuff, and I know the NHS doesn't do that. This isn't an intolerance. This is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, known as SIBO, which I think is common for a lot of people in this country, and they aren't aware of it because there's not a lot of information on it. People don't talk about it, and the NHS or any doctors or GP I've seen never ever mentioned it in my life. And what this is a hydrogen and methane breath test. So it appears that you do like a breath, they send you a kit, you do some breath tests, send it back for testing, and also they get you to drink certain things like a fructose, lactose, that sort of stuff, and then you breathe into a tube, and it shows, I haven't researched it fully yet, but you know, it shows like how your small intestines perhaps may absorb or not absorb vitamins, what's present, what's going on in there, and that is really key to immune system health and everything. So to me, like, your gut bacteria is normally a problem, is behind a lot of skin problems and immune system problems, and just everything in the body we know is connected. And I feel like medical practices don't really look at that. They just look at, oh, you've got a problem in your stomach, let's remove your stomach. They don't look at, you've got a problem in your stomach, is it your stomach that's the problem, or is it something higher up here that leads to that problem, or is it, you know, low vitamin B or D that actually led to this stomach problem, or, you know, anyway, I'm babbling. But overall, I'd say that, you know, with private you have access to a higher range and a lot more connections to things that you wouldn't have with the NHS, and you have more freedom to choose and pick what you want to do. So that is a plus. So what I can also say is that I know with the NHS and private, you know, how friendly or what good service you get is really down on an individual basis. What I can say though, maybe I was naive to have high expectations, but you know, NHS gets pulled in a lot of directions, but I'd like to say that I've always had mostly a good experience, and anything that I'm not happy with is more the system and the way it works, because it doesn't look at natural health remedies. But you know, I've always had a mostly positive experience. Sometimes people in hospitals can be a bit stush, a bit rude, a bit cold, you know, they're obviously busy or whatever, you know, it just again depends on the individual. So I went to this BMI Royal Oak near Chase Farm Hospital in Enfield, and when I walked in, I kind of thought, I was expecting it to look a bit nicer and posher. You know, I hear about my friends and my partner said they went to the Royal Brompton, and it was like big chandelier, very nice, very posh, and I have seen some of these things before, but this was just looked standard. Could have been the NHS hospital. You know, clean, but a bit you know, like their tables and chairs looked a bit eroded, like, you know, they could have their old furniture, and it looked okay, nothing special. As far as professionalism and politeness from the staff in reception, didn't get a very comfortable, like, oh, welcome, this is, you know, again, they, you know, it was very like, okay, what's your name, do you need this, yep, go. So not so great. The person I had my blood test with, she was lovely, a very sweet, kind, caring nurse, which is good, because the nurses I get in the NHS when they're taking blood, they seem like they're in a bad mood or angry, and they just can't be bothered to take blood, like they're, I don't know, depressed at being in their job. And right now we're all lucky to have a job. But again, based on the individual. So the blood, she was really nice, but she did do some damage. She tried to get a vein here. She looked at both my arms. Now my arms aren't very veiny, but with experience of having blood tests, if I clench my fist really tight and stretch out and, you know, slap it like a crack addict, it does get blood. I mean, the vein does pop up. But she was very gentle and kind of gave it a rub, couldn't see anything, gave that one a rub, and then decided to go for my hands. Now, I don't know much about bloods, but I am aware that these veins down here are going to be a lot skinnier than these veins. And as soon as she put it in the hand, it was excruciating pain. Like, normally it's just a little prick, you barely feel it. Even if they don't do a good job, you feel it a little bit, but it's nothing major. It killed. It hurt. Like, I wanted to say something, but I didn't. And then she couldn't get blood. The vein collapsed, and so she pulled it out, and then I was left with, I mean, there's a tiny bit of a bruise. I'll probably show some pictures of what it actually did look like. And then she thought she'd go for my thumb, which I'm not sure was a good idea. And she's like, oh, you can get blood from anywhere on the body. And I was like, well, mate, go for my feet. Like, they have throbbing veins all day long. Like, they look terrible. Just do it for my feet. She was like, oh, we mainly do that with children. I'm like, why are you going for my hands? There's like nothing on there. And that, again, was quite painful and it hurt. And then finally she went back to here, thank God. And I just said, look, just give it a bit longer. And I clenched my fist as much as I could, and I gave it a little bit of a slap. And then, lo and behold, there was a vein, and she got loads of blood out of that. Also, actually, a thing I didn't think of before, like, I normally drink a lot of water, but I was a little bit dehydrated. So I asked for a glass of water, and after I drank water, the blood just flew out. I mean, you know, it was great. So tips would be, you know, drink some water, and if you know where you have a good vein showing anywhere in the body, like, tell them, because getting it out of your hands, you know, the veins just collapsed. They gave a couple of drops and then gave up, you know, you couldn't cope. These are very small, you know, to be sticking a needle in and whatever. So, you know, anyway, so overall, is it better than the NHS? The individual I had was lovely, so I would say yes. But her technique of getting blood out, I actually think the NHS did a better job. It hurt less, and I didn't have loads of bruises. So, you know, it does depend on the individual. But yeah, cleanliness and the environment of the hospital seemed the same. You know, it didn't look much better, didn't feel any cleaner. You know, I didn't feel any more special, let's say, in a private hospital, although I am aware each hospital is different. I have been to a private medical hospital with my husband, and that was, you know, quite nice, looked much nicer than the NHS. I think overall at the moment it's the waiting time. Like, there is no waiting time with private. I mean, there can be, depending on what you need. You know, if I perhaps needed a lung transplant or a kidney or something, it'd probably be longer. But as far as, like, me and my husband, he's had dental work, and that was quick, and he was in an actual hospital, and he stayed overnight, and it was very good treatment, and it's a lot cleaner and a lot more private, and you get your own room. That is amazing. With outpatient stuff, I would say same as the NHS. The only difference is I can get an appointment for many things a lot quicker. So it's a tough call, really.